Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our annual Summerween series, celebrating hot weather and horror movies by bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and literary analysis all summer long.
Oh boy, what a one to start on. This one was a lot.
Yes, bring her back. So we got to see this a couple days ago, and I think we're both still rattling from the experience.
Yeah, I sure am.
One big theory to play with that I want to jump right into here, because I think we were both grappling with our thoughts for a couple days. Didn't know exactly what we thought or what we wanted to play with here on the show. But the big sticking point for me, I was reminded of this weird trend that I think everyone kind of caught on to earlier this year in 2025, and that was the twin discourse. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, sure. We talked about that a bunch.
Yeah, it was this strange trend from Mickey 17 to Sinners to that Robert De Niro movie, The Alto Knights, to the Osgood Perkins movie, The Monkey, where all of these films of disparate genres and tones, they all prominently featured identical twins portrayed by one actor.
The Shrouds did it as well, the new Cronenberg movie.
That's a great poll. Yes,
Yeah.
We covered that over on Patreon,
We did,
I believe.
yeah.
I enjoyed all of those films to varying degrees. And the most impressive thing about them was just the range of the central performers. It felt like them flexing and pushing themselves.
Yeah, that's always exciting to see.
But the fact that they were playing two central roles never felt completely necessary to the story. I don't know.
Okay.
It felt more like an exercise for the actors than it did a story decision.
I see what you mean, yeah.
Versus the Shakespearean or theatrical tradition of doubling, which is where actors play multiple roles. Sometimes within the same scene, they'll hold up a hat to their head to show that they're playing one character, and then jump to the other side, take off the hat, and play the other side of the conversation.
Right, and those two roles aren't twins usually. They're completely different people. So it's like within the story, the characters don't realize that those two characters look alike, but we, the audience, do, and that's really interesting.
But I've always been fascinated by the concept of doubling because I think there's almost always a strong reason. There's a strong thematic resonance or commentary in which characters each actor plays. So if you double up an actor playing a father and son, you can play the similarities between those characters in a more aching, honest way.
Sure.
I think there are always fascinating choices being made in who doubles what roles. But watching Bring Her Back, I immediately felt a sense of sibling connection that I think was absent from the other films I just named.
Okay.
For example, Andy and Piper, they weren't actually twins.
Of course not.
But they were of a similar age. And for me, at least, as a brother with a sister, these two felt infinitely more connected and related than any of the relationships in those other movies I named.
Sure, and it's especially interesting because not only are they definitely not twins, they're not even related by blood. They're step siblings.
Right.
They're found family, but they have such a strong sibling bond.
And it wasn't just that example. I thought as the film went on, this idea expanded because we got more and more kind of compounding found family plot lines. There's a mother finding a surrogate new daughter with Laura and Piper. There's this step-sibling relationship that seems relatively new between Andy and Piper. There's adoption with Oliver, whatever the hell's going on there.
Yeah.
There are all of these kind of overlapping, missed and forged connections. These shadow families kind of pieced together on top of one another.
Yeah, people replacing each other, filling different roles, but none of it quite fitting and all of it being a little bit off. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think there's an increasing tension in those attempts to marry these disparate parts. I think that the best example there is the Piper-Kathy connection.
Definitely.
Where Laura there's an increasingly explicit effort to recreate or replace her lost daughter. And when it gets to the clothes and the hair and the relationship dynamic, it becomes so intense that I that's where I started to think about the twin thing.
Okay.
And the doubling.
Yeah.
Because it felt like the characters were trying to manifest that. In the same way doubling isn't quite perfect. You see the person raise the hat up to their head or take it off.
Yeah, the spell is broken there. There's no disbelief there.
It's an imitation. But as an audience member, you can see the puppet strings. You can see how the magic trick is coming across. And in the finale of the film, Piper only survives, this attempt to spoilers, I guess, for the whole movie.
Yeah.
Piper only survives by momentarily pretending to be this resurrected version of Kathy.
That's right, yes.
And I think that one singular moment might be the only traditional example of doubling because it's one actor playing two roles almost at the same moment.
Yes,
It's an incredibly intense form of doubling. It's almost a double vision. Because by that point in the film, I knew it was going to be Piper. It just didn't seem like the magic trick was going to work and this resurrection was going to work.
Yes,
but you're also kind of over Laura's shoulder. So you're kind of seeing her seeing Kathy. So you're seeing these two performances at the same time from one actor. And for me, that's sort of what doubling feels like.
I also think maybe you're going to get into this, but Ollie, there's an element of doubling there too, because he himself has disappeared, but he's still there. You see him come out by writing the word bird on the notepad. And anyway, maybe you're going to get into it, but I think both of those kids get to sort of like double simultaneously in a way that you can't really in like a play, for example.
Totally. Because beyond just the Piper-Kathy thing, you're right. The rest of the film is all wrapped up in these themes, whether it's identity, duality, coexistence, contradiction. These are all the big themes we're playing with in the film. And eventually, as I was watching it, I was still engrossed, but part of me does this show when I'm watching things now. I can't really help it.
It's hard not to,
But eventually I was reminded of another horror film, another ambitious sophomore horror film. I'll describe it obliquely and see if you can get there before I do.
Okay.
This horror movie has a whacked out kid with a weird mask who acts very strange. It has replica families, shocking levels of gore taking place in a suburban family home, and a suggestive, purposely vague magic system with shades of occult presence.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Jordan Peele's Us.
Oh, interesting.
But I think for me, this film surpasses Us because of its other parallel.
Okay.
And that was the thing that really sold me on this film. But besides the performances, the writing, the directing, which I all think were top notch.
Sure.
It was the film's unfailing fascination with this replacement, this impossible replacement after love lost. And I think as much as you see Laura demonized in what she's doing to these kids, it also kind of humanizes her as a villain. As she goes to worse and worse places and does worse and worse things to these three kids, you kind of understand her better.
Oh,
it doesn't
100%.
turn her into the boogeyman. It turns her into this tragic character. And her spiral in the second half of the film really started to remind me of the second half of Vertigo.
Oh, cool.
Where a man loses the woman he loves, finds a woman who kind of looks like her,
and tries to replace her.
And makes all of these efforts to change her physical appearance.
To replicate her.
To change her demeanor. To recreate the other woman. And it's increasingly cruel to the new woman.
Yes.
But it also humanizes him. And you get kind of the depth of his pain and loss. It's not an endorsement. It's an exploration. And it reminded me of how uneasy and sad I felt watching Vertigo for the first time.
Yeah, and because with both of these, it's like not only is it's the things that the villain are doing are very scary. It's more that isn't it so scary that a deep emotion such as grief or loss or missing someone can drive you to do these horrible things.
Yes.
Like that's what's really, really scary is like it's like humanity to the extreme. Like that's the scariest thing. That's much scarier than a random demon, you know?
Right.
And that is a very scary thing as well.
You're testing the limits of character and of fiction as they do these actions that are increasingly unhinged and cruel.
Yeah.
You're seeing that underlying desperation. You're feeling that ache more and more explicitly. And I think this is why the film felt so resonant for me, because it became this compounding tragedy. Honestly, parts of the film felt almost unbearable. Because by the end of it, especially by the time Laura dies, spoilers again, we can really eventually see the person that she used to be, and particularly the good, loving mother that Laura used to be, at the exact same time as we can see the horrors that she's committing now.
Yes.
And I think that, again, to this idea of double vision, it's a less direct but equally impactful and resonant form of that Shakespearean doubling we were talking about before. And like you said before, and I'm glad you expanded it out immediately, this idea is almost present in every major character in the film.
Oh, okay.
You started with Oliver, which is perfect because that's where I was going to go. Oliver is at once a vessel waiting for Kathy's soul, seemingly. That's what I got from this.
Yeah, he's gonna be the courier, basically.
Yes.
He's going to eat her and transfer the soul into Piper. Yeah.
So at once he's this empty vessel waiting for a soul, and he's this shell of a kidnapped boy. And you see those identities in the same moment throughout the film. Wendy, who's the colleague.
Oh, yes, at the social services place, yeah.
She's both Laura's defiant colleague who trusts her old friend and a concerned social worker listening to Andy's theory.
Yes, yes.
The dad, Phil, who's the dad to Andy and Piper, he is at the very same time Andy's abusive father and Piper's supportive, loving dad.
Yes.
And the more we learn about him, the more we see those flashbacks, the more we have to reckon with those coexisting, contradicting identities. Piper is both a sheltered child and an observant adolescent. A lot of seen and unseen, a lot of beautiful visual metaphors throughout her character.
And she's at that age where she is really towing the line between childhood and adolescence. I get the sense she's about 12, and that is such an age where you really do double. You're a little girl and you're a rebellious teen all at the same time.
And you see her experimenting with these identities. Is she going to be newly orphaned, or is she going to lean into the Laura thing and kind of become new Kathy?
Yeah.
And she seems a little bit aware of that.
And she's not quite sure what she wants to do because she wants to be loved by a parent, and she's starting to be confused about her relationship with Andy. So, yeah, what else is she going to do?
And of course, Andy is both a terrified child in his own right, having panic attacks with all of these traumatic experiences, while also being Piper's new surrogate protective father.
Right. He wants to apply for guardianship. Yeah.
And you can compound his character even further with another shade of his jealousy and resentment of Piper.
Yes.
So he's playing at least two ideas at the same time.
Interesting.
But this whole central cast is always playing multiple phases, multiple identities, multiple realities simultaneously.
I think that's maybe why it's so messy. Them all trying to fit into each other's lives is because they don't know which roles to play. They don't know which roles they're supposed to be in. And so none of it is quite fitting because everybody's flitting back and forth between their various identities, whether they choose to or not.
Yes.
You know?
And when most of the cast is so young, I think that makes the film even more impressive because it is such a gorgeous, rich riff on that Shakespearean doubling. I found this film to have such tremendous depth and density. And we loved Talk to Me. We did an episode about that over on the Patreon.
We did, yeah.
But I thought this was such an incredible step up from what was already an excellent debut film.
Me too. I think when we said this when we left the theater, I really liked Talk to Me. It was exciting and gross and gritty and freaky, but I didn't find myself thinking about it too much after, which is not a critique. That's just the kind of film it was. It helped me explore an idea about, grief and loss and fitting in and friendship, but I didn't really continue to think about it after. It's been very different with this one. I've thought about it a lot since, and I liked that you said that there were parts that were unbearable. Because you're so right, like in terms of the emotional stakes and where the story went. But I think also what I love so much about the horror elements was that they too were incredibly uncomfortable and unbearable. And that's always exciting to see in a horror movie, but it's much more effective when it's serving the story. And here it really was, watching, especially any scene that had Ollie in it, like watching some horrific things happen to him and because of him, which are really because of Kathy and really are largely because of the loss of her child. Like that was so unbearable to watch and so uncomfortable. And it made all of the emotional discomfort heightened all the more. And I thought that all wove together really, really beautifully. It was a really unsettling movie. And like you said, I really had kind of a hard time figuring out where I wanted to land in my discussion of this because it was so emotionally moving and impactful, but it all felt so, it was hard to really, pin it down, and it felt really vague and complicated and blending in my head. But I think this idea of doubling that you're talking about, that helps me understand that. Like, I was like, why are all my ideas kind of blending together? and it's because of this doubling, just how all the characters' identities are blending together and moving back and forth and flitting across, dimensions. And I mean, even the circles, right? Going back and forth across the different lines of the circles and trying to, put people within a circle and contain them, like that.
Testing boundaries.
Yeah, like that. I think that maybe helps me understand why my ideas felt so overlapped and Venn diagrammy. So I think this is a great way to approach this movie. I really like that idea.
Fantastic film, because
really
I feel
good.
Like you could spend a long time just playing with the script and talking about all of these ideas, but on a more surface level of just watching the film as a fan of horror, some of the crunchiest, nastiest gore. I mean, the thing with the wood,
the knife, and the countertop,
chewing on the knife, the countertop, the arm,
eating
thing.
the arm. Yeah, like it is some of the most unnerving,
gnarly
stuff I've ever seen, and it was great because I liked that we took our time to get there.
Yes,
the story, like this is, I think, some of my favorite. I don't want to say the best kind of horror film because there's so much range within horror and this is limiting, but some of my favorite kind of horror is a movie that is kind of like Sinners, where it's so good as a drama, as a story, and then the horror elements are just like they take the whole thing to a whole new level. And it's not like the movie is not relying on the horror, but also the movie cannot be nearly as good without it, but it is still fantastic even without the horror. Do you know what I mean? So I thought this movie did that great because there are elements of horror and creepy images throughout, but it doesn't really ramp up to the last third of the movie. Because as the movie was going on, about halfway through, I was thinking to myself, this is a really, really great story. I'm really invested, but it's not like Talk to Me was pretty scary. This isn't really very scary. This isn't very gross. It's kind of whatever. And then Ollie starts taking bites out of things, and I was like, oh, never mind. I was so wrong. So, man, this movie really, really killed it for me. I so appreciated how thoughtful it was. And you're right. The fact that I didn't really think about this, the film is one adult woman and 3 kids, and those 3 kids were so good. I was so impressed with their performances, and of course with Laura's performance too. What's her name?
Sally Hawkins.
Yeah, she was so excellent. I mean, everybody was excellent. It's a really top-notch movie.
Fun way to kick off Summerween as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So if you haven't been here before, our Summerween series, we've been doing this every year since probably 2021, I think, maybe 22, but I want to say 21. We love horror. We love talking about it. And because we hate summer, especially because we live in Texas where it's 1,000 degrees and it's only May. Actually, now by the time you're listening to this, it's June. But we like to sort of manifest spooky season, manifest autumn, which is the superior season, and talk about horror. Summerween is not our word, by the way. Someone else invented it, but it's a free word, so we've stolen it and we're using it. So it's
a pretty simple combo. I think a lot of people did the math there.
Yeah. So just I don't want to take credit for inventing a word. Sure. Anyway, so all summer long we're going to be putting out horror episodes. We're going to be talking about new horror, old horror. It's going to be really, really fun. And I think this summer we're going to do the most Summerween episodes we've ever done, because last summer we sort of had to step back from it a bit because we were doing House of the Dragon, we were going through Game of Thrones, and that was really fun, but now we have a lot more space to play. So you'll get at least one Summerween episode every week. Sometimes it's going to be 2. So please stay tuned for more and more and more. If you've got horror movie recommendations for us, please drop those in the comments down below. We have a list going, but only a couple things are really set in stone. So if you've got great recommendations, please send them our way.
And if you want even more horror coverage from us, including our episode on Talk to Me, you can check out the Patreon. $2 a month. You can support the show, get at least 2 brand new bonus episodes every month, and access to the entire back catalog. Absolutely. And if you want to support the show in an even more fun way, check out Cam's latest book, Lemon Tarts in Space. If you didn't know, Cam is an author and illustrator and director and voice actor and producer and many other things. He's amazing. His latest book is a light sci-fi dark comedy. There is some fun body horror in there. It's very goofy. It's very gnarly. It's very exciting. The best way to pitch it is Ridley Scott's Alien meets Monty Python. It really truly is those 2 things. You can read it as regular book in the format of your choice, or you can check out the fully produced audio drama, which is really, really excellent, and I highly recommend that. Thank you all so much for your support. Like and subscribe and click all the things to make the robots like us, and we'll catch you in a few days with another brand new episode.